Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Stateside Footy. And it is Tottenham Hotspur player ratings, which will also be available not only on Stateside Footy, but also Tottenham Hotspur Till I Die. And we're doing player ratings. As everybody knows by now, Tottenham Hotspur beat Southampton 3-1 this afternoon, and there were some very good performances. But before we get into this, hit the like and subscribe button, and let the algorithm do what the algorithm is meant to do, which is to get this onto as many eyeballs as possibly can. So now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some of these player ratings. We're going to start and goal with Guillermo Vicario. Now, I thought Vicario did pretty well today. A lot more sound building up from out of the back, but also in the saves department, I thought he was sound. I thought he did exactly what he was supposed to do after what I consider a shaky performance against Chelsea. Today he looked confident. Today he looked strong. I'm going to go ahead and give Guillermo Vicario a 7 rating. Turning to the backs, now this is an interesting one because this kind of was a tale of two halves. In the first half, I thought defensively, I thought we looked strong. As this game waned on a little bit in the second half, it was almost a little bend but don't break. Spurs did concede in the 89th minute, but that being said, I thought Jed Spence played incredibly well today, especially in the first half on those overlapping runs. Defensively, I thought that I thought he did exactly what he has been doing throughout the course of the season, which is playing sound fundamental defense, locking up 1v1 challenges on the wing, especially when Southampton started to press a little bit in the second half right there. I think he stood tall. I'm going to give Jed Spence a 7.5 rating. At the center back position, both Cuti Romero and Ben Davis. I didn't listen, man. I love Cuti Romero, and I do believe he's a world-class defender. But, we're also talking about a guy who's working his way back to sharpness. And I didn't think he necessarily stood out for any one reason, whether that be good or a bad. I thought it was a solid performance. Same thing with Ben Davis. One of the things that you happen to know when it comes to center backs, the only time you really talk about them is if something terrible happened throughout the course of the game. But that being said, I thought both stood tall. And when we talk about player ratings, for the most part, they were about like maybe average to good. So right in that little 6.5 to 7 rating, I'm going to give both of them that kind of rating. As we turn over to the right back position, I thought Pedro Porro was fine. And again, one of the things that I was really interested in about was the combination between him and Brendan Johnson, because throughout the course of the season, we've seen Pedro Porro stuck on an island 1v1. And in some of those situations, it did not turn out all that great. But today, it looked like there was a nice little tandem on the right-hand side. Especially going forward as well too. It almost looked like quintessential Ange ball at times. And so from that standpoint, he was, Pedro Porro was able to track back as well too. I thought he made a couple brilliant plays defensively to pick the pocket. To pick a couple pockets. So, from that standpoint, I thought this was maybe one of his stronger performances that we've seen over the course of the last couple of months, and I'm going to give Pedro Porro a 7.5. Turning to the midfield trio of James Maddison, Rodrigo Betancourt, and Lucas Bergvall. Let's start with Lucas Bergvall. I actually think this was one of his better games, and of course, Ange Postecoglou post-game, described him as being a little leggy. But that being said, especially in the first half, as Spurs were marching forward in the attack, we haven't seen those type of runs into the box since earlier this season when Dejan Kulusevski was doing that. And I thought it showed a lot of courage from the young Bergvall to not only drive forward, get into the box, but also being able to dump passes off in advantageous positions. I love that from him. I thought defensively he was able to get back and eat up space a little bit. From that standpoint, I think this was far and away a better performance than we saw against Chelsea, and I'm going to give him an 8-point rating. Turning to Rodrigo Betancourt, this was kind of interesting. It's almost the same thing with the center back pairings as Betancourt. As long as you're not hearing his name, it seemed to have gone well. I thought defensively, again, much better than he was versus Chelsea. I thought his passing look a lot cleaner today as well too. But that being said, didn't put himself in disadvantages in a disadvantage. I thought his man marking was fine. From a 6, what they actually use a 6'4" is almost like a hybrid deep line playmaker, and I thought he was fine today. Nothing out of the realm of nothing out of a situation where he did this team didn't do anything to hurt this team. I'm going to give him a 7 rating. As far as James Madison, and again, he didn't have the goal, but I thought his contributions in the attack were actually pretty good today. And this is the curious, weird case of James Madison, right? The ability to pick and choose when you want to show up. And today, I thought he played well. That combination on the left-hand side between Spence, him, and Sonny, playing the 1-2s, getting to good positions to actually hit the overlapping run. I thought James Madison did a very good job. He had the assist as well too on Brennan Johnson's second goal with the header right there. He just was in good spots today, and a lot of that has to do with Southampton not being all that great. But that being said, these are the type of performances you want to see from James Madison moving forward. We're going to need him, especially Thursday versus Eintracht Frankfurt. So I'm going to give James Madison an 8-point rating today. I thought he was very good. I just think these are the performances, that you want to get to the point where James Madison is going to be consistent. Turning to the forward line, we started with Sonny. And I said before this match that I did not want to see Sonny in the starting lineup today, just for the fact that I just didn't think he was good enough. And against a team like Southampton, you're expecting your captain to rise above and actually do some nice things to put Southampton to the sword. And in one instance where he made a run, he got a ball delivered perfectly right at his feet as he was running forward. But unfortunately, he ran out of steam and didn't do the thing that he should have, which was stop short and find Slinky running down the middle into the box. And he didn't. He decided to take a shot. It gets blocked, and that pretty much was that pretty much sums up Sonny's performance today. Now, I'm not going to disrespect him by giving him a 5 rating. I don't think it was all that. But that being said, I think it's evident now that whatever Sonny has left, it is not going to be in a position where he can give you a full 90. Now, whether or not Ange Postecoglou is going to make that decision by starting a guy like Wilson Odegaard on the left and then using Sonny as a super sub, I don't think we're at that point yet, but it's completely evident where, if you can't take advantage of a bad Southampton defense, then there's another conversation to be had. I'm going to give Sonny a 6 today. Turning over to Dominic Solanke. Listen, Solanke, here's the thing, man. Dom Solanke gives you everything but goals. And I know that's a tough thing to hear coming from a primary target 9, but today was no different. I thought his work rate was excellent. And he did all the little things right. One of the things that I wanted him to do was also take a couple gambles on shots, and he did. He had a nice shot early in the second half where he put one on target. He had another one as he was fed, not so much center, but he decided to take a shot. It went wide of the mark and off the side of the net. But I like that, right? Because you're willing to put shots on net, which is something that this team has not been able to consistently do. To even put yourself in a position for a rebound if there's somebody camping on the backside at the far post. So from that standpoint, I like that Solanke was willing to take shots today. I think his work rate speaks for itself. But the reality is what's his primary job? To put the ball in the back of the net. And again, there was some issue with service, maybe an issue with some positioning. But that being said, I still think, Dom leading that front line did a fairly good job. But that being said, I give him a 6.5. Turning our attention now to Brennan Johnson. And I know a lot of fans were upset to see Brendan's inclusion in today's starting 11. But that being said, I think there was a comment earlier today that he is a bottom table merchant. And that just very well might be because Brennan Johnson had 2 goals today leading the charge. The first goal was actually a beautiful finish as he took that weighted pass from Jed Spence, who broke around Southampton's back line around the corner, reaches the touchline, puts a very, very good ball into the box, and there was Brendan Johnson to clean it up to give Spurs that early lead, something that they absolutely needed to do. They needed, 100% that what they needed to do was manage this game, perfectly from the start of the whistle, being constantly on the front foot, putting pressure on Southampton's defense, and they certainly did that. And I thought Brendan Johnson, that first goal was absolutely beautiful because, that finish was a thing of beauty. Then he comes back again after a goal is disallowed. You're wondering if Spurs were going to break. They didn't. And James Maddison, as that ball pinged up in the air, it comes down, it bounces. James Maddison just heads it forward, and there's Brendan Johnson to finish it home again. Another good finish to give Spurs a 2-0 lead. And say what you will. I mean, Brendan, for the most part, tends to disappear, and even in the games where he actually scores goals. But today, I actually thought his hustle, his hustle and his work rate to get back, to track back, but also to not give up when he's been beaten 1v1, trying to get around the corner or trying to cut in to get into the box. When there was opportunities to turn around and get right back to the ball, there was Brendan Johnson. He hustled back to make sure that Spurs stayed in possession. I thought his performance today was actually a thing of beauty. That was the one thing that we didn't see against Chelsea. We didn't necessarily see it against Fulham. That engine that he has, that we know that he can have. It's that spark plug mentality of some of the times that we've seen earlier in the year when he comes off the bench or even when he starts. So I thought Brendan played a very good game, and hopefully there's going to be some carryover against Eintracht Frankfurt. I think he did enough to deserve a start in that first league. Now, whether or not Ange Postecoglou is going to go in a different direction, we shall see. But I definitely believe that he did a very good job to warrant a second look come the first leg on Thursday. I actually going to give Brendan Johnson an 8.5. Now, turning to the bench, we did see some very good subs today. I thought Ange handled it perfectly. In the 57th minute, he brought on Wilson Odegaard, who not exactly the greatest performance from Odegaard today, coming off for a Sunny. I think it was in the 57th minute. For the most part, when that happens before the 60th minute, you're bringing on a lot more defensive subs. We saw Yves Bissouma, we saw Archie Gray, and it was what it was. For the most part, I'm going to give a bench in totality. I'm going to give them kind of like a 6. I don't think one of the things that you're tasked to do, especially if you're going for more of a defensive shell. Number one, I guess it does signaling that you're willing to put more heads behind the ball. But that being said, you're not allowed to break. And it looked like as the second half was kind of unfolding, we saw Spurs take their foot off the gas a little bit. And, they allowed Southampton pretty much to control the tempo of that second half, which resulted in a conceded goal in the 89th minute. So from that standpoint, you had one job to do, which is to stand tall defensively. And I don't think they really did it all that well. Yves Bissouma, and this is no disrespect to Archie Gray, it is what it is. But that being said, you take off your creativity and you bring on defense, and this is exactly what you get. So from that standpoint, I think I'm going to give the subs, about a 6. I'm not going to it was average. It wasn't great. It wasn't beautiful, but it is what it is. Turning to Ange Postecoglou, that's right. I am going to rate Ange Postecoglou today, and I thought he rebounded surprisingly well from the Thursday Chelsea match. One of the things that I wanted to see was a continuous starting 11 without that many rotated switches. One of the things that has to be taken into account for is the fact that as much as the Europa League is important, and it's the last trophy that we have left to fight for, but the fact that the Premier League is also equally as important from now into the remainder of the season. Ange Postecoglou has to get results, and you have to keep that continuity and that consistency. I understand Van de Ven was that almost seemed like it was going to be an automatic switch and we did get Ben Davis, and that's fine. Especially when we saw Van de Ven kind of limp a little bit towards the end of that Chelsea match. So what I will say is that was fine for me. I had a feeling that we were going to see James Maddison today, and I had a feeling we were going to see Sonny as well too. I was perfectly fine with the Brendan Johnson inclusion. He still has to make sure Brendan's going to get minutes, and when he rotates with Wilson Odegaard. So from that standpoint, he put out a very strong starting 11. But also, I thought his substitutions were actually pretty good as well too. When you looked at the time in which the bulk of those substitutions were made, was right around the hour mark in the 57th, 58th minute. So I mean, from that standpoint, it's right on par with what Ange likes to do. And I didn't have a problem with going a little bit more defensive. It wasn't necessarily throwing in the towel on it or trying to protect it. Granted, they still want to push forward, and they absolutely did. But for the most part, it was, especially when it comes to in context of what's going to happen on Thursday, he wants to make sure that he doesn't overwork certain guys like James Maddison, guys like Lucas Bergvall. So that's why, you saw those guys come off the field a little bit early. Same thing with Sonny. It was nice to see Matisse Tell come on. We hadn't seen him in a little bit, and he gets the huge PK right there at the end. But one of the things that I will say is you have to credit Brendan Johnson on that real quick, because he was the one that made the move of kind of moving, using that foot to move the ball out of the way and then taking one for the team to get the PK. So listen, all credit around for Ange Postecoglou. I think he did right by Spurs today. Most importantly, he got the three. He got the 3 points, which is the most important thing. It builds momentum towards Thursday. So I'm going to give Ange Postecoglou a 7 today. I thought he hit all the right buttons from pre-match all the way through. And so from that standpoint, this is exactly what you want to see. It's all about momentum. It's all about continuity and consistency as you're building towards that huge first leg on Thursday. So overall, very good match today. I thought performances were good. Maybe a little bend but don't break in the second half. But that being said, Spurs did exactly what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to rebound from Chelsea. They got the 3 points, but they also showed you in match as well too that they weren't going to allow small things to ruin an afternoon, especially when they had that goal disallowed and when Southampton struck late. They immediately responded. So those are good things that you want to see heading into what could be one of the bigger matches of the season against Eintracht Frankfurt. So I want to thank you guys for stopping by and tuning in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure to follow us here on Stateside Footy for content when it comes to the Tottenham Hotspur and the U.S. men's national team, and also Tottenham Hotspur Till I Die on our sister channel as well too. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. You guys have a fantastic rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon.